Hi, welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 43. I'm Josh Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I'm here with Jason Leskew, Preps reporter.
The Kiki Challenge is 20 years old, and it's actually called Ghost Riding the Whip. Fun fact.
Random references from the 90s that I was 5 for when Jason was living through. So that's how young I am. We are here to discuss the prep football season. We'll get to the other sports on a later podcast, but football is kind of the beast in the fall. That's just kind of the way it goes. We still love you, all other sports, but football is fun and the big one for the fall. Our Preps 56-page Preps Plus football guide came out. Right in the middle. Camera. Came out Wednesday. I don't know when this podcast is being released, but this thing came out Wednesday. It's pretty chock full of a lot of good stuff. We've been working on this thing since June. We started working on it before our spring mag came out. It's got lots of cool stuff. It looks really good. This great photo of Dawson Fritz. Really cool looking page. It's got a cover story on how local football turnout hasn't been hit as hard as the nationwide scene. Jason, let's start actually on that topic. What did you find out? I think we went into the story thinking that local turnout was actually down. What did you find out during the course of reporting that story?
The area hasn't been, let me preface this by saying, the nation has seen a pretty significant drop in turnout. You're talking 5 to 10 kids a team, give or take. Obviously, bigger areas are probably going to be hit less than smaller areas, so on and so forth. But here, it's not the case. So a few of the reasons that athletic directors and coaches attributed that to were proper tackling technique and the coaching of proper tackling, which was a big one. A lot of people said, well, it's not about, the concussion thing isn't a problem for us because we're teaching this correctly. The parents understand that, and they're saying, okay, I trust you with my kid. I can see that you're doing, you're coaching football the way that people want it to be coached and the way that it should be coached. And so here, I trust that you can take care of my son. And that was the big one. I think anytime I mentioned turnout, that was something that was volunteered by a lot of people that I talked to. Hey, it's not. We're teaching this right, and it's made an impact. That's the big thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I understand the concerns of parents. I understand the concerns about football, but I think Easton Crape said it best, and I'll actually find the quote because I think Easton Crape summed up why we all love football. And let me actually find this thing because there is something different about football than other sports, isn't there? Let's see. Let's see what he said. It's actually kind of like a two-part quote here. There's no feeling like Friday night. There's no better feeling than winning a football game. I play basketball and do track, and being in a state championship in any of the other sports doesn't top just a regular Friday night. Football is not a comfortable sport, but there's something different about it. That's what makes it special. This is everything special that not everyone wants to do. There's athletic guys in the hall that you go up to and ask to come out to play, and they'll say no. Some say they're smart. I think they're wrong. And I think that kind of sums up how this area is felt about football, is that, especially in small communities, football is just something different, something that ties not only players and young athletes together, but communities. Yeah. I mean, I'm going to the Kelso Mark Morris game this Friday, and the atmosphere there with the new turf at Schroeder Field is going to be incredible. The whole town of Kelso is going to come out. Yeah. I mean, there's just something different about it, and it's really encouraging to see the local teams still passionate about football. Have certain teams been hit? Sure. Are certain schools feeling down in numbers? Sure. But as a whole, I wouldn't worry too much about the local scene of football. I think it's still going to be around. I think we've learned that there are safety precautions we have to take, but I think we're, as a whole, being proactive about it.
Right. The number 2 thing was video games. Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket, and you can depending on what version of Android or iOS you have, I guess you can play Madden with a guy in China, at the same time too. So then that was a secondary thing that I think might become one of the larger issues that coaches are going to have to face. But
yeah, I think you touched on video games last year in the cover story, was kind of how offenses and stuff are almost developing around. I mean, you look at the NFL players too. I mean,
yeah.
You see guys get offended by their ratings on a Madden game. It's like, it's kind of funny, but yeah, that's kind of the cover story. Other things in it: league previews, team previews, projected starters, return of Sal the scientist. There's a story on what local teams have done in the past after winning a state championship, like Kalama. No local team since WIA formed its state playoffs in 1973 has repeated as state champion. Is Kalama the first to do it? It's also got a really intriguing story about stadiums and who they're named after. Who was Emmett Schroeder or Chris Coral or Ted Hippie. So I really suggest you pick up a copy. You can read all the stories online, but we really like the design of this thing. We put a lot of hard work into it. Like I said, it's kind of a summer project. In my biased opinion, it's a really good piece of work to have and to look at and read, and we always appreciate the support.
It's timeless, at least for the season too. It tells you everything you need to know about this season, not just local teams, but who Battleground is playing week 4 and so on. So it's not bad.
Yeah. As far as the season goes itself, let's just kind of run through some of these teams and kind of what we expect of them. We've talked, I think all of us have talked to at least every coach at least once so far. We'll start just with the big dog right away. Kelso, you got to see the Schroeder Field turf. It looks real pretty, doesn't it?
It looks nice. They lose their home field advantage. I mean, I don't know that it was a big one, but when everybody else is used to turf, and then they come and play on grass, there's something to be said about, you develop your get off on one surface like turf, and then you move to grass, especially if it's wet, and it is considerably different. But no, the community is excited, the faculty are excited, their administration is excited, everybody's excited, and hey, now Longview Kelso has a place that can host postseason games.
And I think you wrote in your story when you covered the scrimmage on Saturday was how important it is for all the sports, from Pop Warner to everything. And this is a huge community thing. And I think really important in a little bit of a time of transition for Kelso Athletics, you lose a lot of very good players. You lose a lot from programs that have been on historic highs, programs that went on miraculous runs. And you have something that keeps the community engaged and tied together and interesting. As far as the football team goes, obviously you have some big weapons replacing A.J. Hoggett and McKinch, a lot of big guys around the team that you have to replace. They do return Riley Noah, League Defensive Player of the Year. They have a lot of dudes up front on the line. Kelso seems to pump out better linemen than anybody in the area. I think they'll still be pretty good. I don't know if they can upend Mountain View, but I think they're right atop that league.
Yep. And I think the big story there with Kelso is, it's going to be basically a game time decision who the quarterback's going to be.
Yeah.
And
Kyle Broxton, Marshall Coleman, both battling for the job.
And it's easy to see. I mean, it could go either way.
Yeah.
They're not. It's not because you got two guys who are, the NFL equivalent of like a 7th round pick at quarterback. These guys are both pretty good. And so they're in a good situation in that regard. Both are very athletic. They both have very good arms. And so, that to me is going to be a big deal, especially if they want to mix things up. And
I think Amron hasn't hasn't shied away from saying, I want both guys to get in the game some way. And Amron, I think, is really good about finding ways to get guys in the game. You even look at Quentin Nelson now in Cathlamet. Last year, even though A.J. Hoggett had a firm grasp on the quarterback position, Amron was able to find ways to get Quentin Nelson in the game and get him involved in the offense. I think Amron will do that with either Broxton or Coleman.
And when Hoggett was still hurt, maximize the strengths of Nelson. Yeah.
Right. Longview schools going to be better, worse than last year? Where are they?
Well, I mean, look, Morris was hit hard by the injury bug last year, and as a group has struggled in recent seasons. I think they're definitely going to be better than last year. We'll see. It's really hard to prognosticate what a group of players are going to do when they were banged up the last season, so them. I think the biggest thing with them is, hey, how quickly can they get that confidence and that feeling of I can play football without putting much thought into it. I can hear the play call, snap into a mode, go play. And that's going to be the biggest thing to me.
Yeah, I'm actually really high on Mark Morris this year. I get some of the skepticism from fans and from other teams around the area. This is a team with a lot of athletic dudes. They're not huge up front, but they got a lot of athletic dudes. And anytime I have Dawson Fritz leading a team, I gotta like my chances. I mean, that kid is just a freaking warrior. Mm-hmm. You saw he wasn't the best basketball player in the world, but you saw his role on that basketball team that finished third at state last year. You saw him last year continue to take hit after hit and just get back up. I really like Mark Morris. There's only 3 playoff spots out of that league. I don't see them grabbing one of those, but I really like him for 2, 3, 4 wins this season. I would not be shocked at all. If they can get even to that 5-4 mark, that's a huge win. And I know they want one of those playoff spots. I think the top of the GSHL is too strong. Ari Long, on the other hand, 4th coach in 4 years, coming in, dealing with teacher strike, smoky air. I mean, man, that story encapsulated everything of we have a lot to deal with, especially. I like Dave. I've talked with him. I talked with him at the Lower Columbia Combine that we hosted, and he's a real nice guy, and I think he's got a good football mind on him. But for a guy who hasn't coached high school football before to come into that type of situation, that's hugely tough. And they have a 4th-year quarterback to help kind of that transition. But that's a tough thing to go through that Ari Long is in during the season.
Yeah, I mean, having Enriquez there is going to be a big deal. If you have someone who's only started 1 season or something like that, it could be a very different situation. The one thing that I think is interesting with them is running I-form, which in a lot of ways I think will be very good as long as they can do that effectively. I think they'll do pretty well at that, and here's why. Teams are designing their defenses to protect against the pass. Just the way it is. It's happened in not just high school, it's happened in college and NFL too. Everything's designed against protecting against the big play, the fly route, or the wheel that or the post that changes the game. The running game, if you can get that going, and if you can really find where those weaknesses and defenses are, you can do a lot with that.
Yeah, and I will be interested to see what Owen does this year. If he puts up another great year like he has, 4 coaches in 4 years, and your starter in most. I know he took over, as an injury replacement his freshman year for Owen Bertram, but if he can put up another season, 4 coaches, 4 years, 4 different offenses, it shows a lot of grit from that kid, and he's got his head on his shoulders. As far as Woodland goes, our other local team in the GSHL 2A, what are you thinking about him? New quarterback, post-Wyatt Harsh era? I mean, everything's been a little bit about Wyatt Harsh the past 4 years. And got a great arm on him, clearly a talented kid. What do they do post that?
Well, I mean, when you look at their offense the last 2 seasons, the run game has really been, there has been no running back, it's been, there's been a running back going out in the flat or, something like that. Whereas the quarterback serves as kind of the running back. Tyler Flanagan, probably, if not the fastest kid in the area, definitely one of them, is going to be very effective with that. He can throw he's not the same passer as Harsh is.
Does he need to be with that receiving core?
Well, that's the question. Okay, look, it's kind of like leverage. Coaches talk about blocking, tackling, leveraging. You got to run the route and you got to catch the ball, and that's the big thing. And so, yeah, if that happens, then they're in really good shape. Up front, they're very good. They're very big. They're probably, out of the three 2A locals we have, they're probably by far the biggest offensive and defensive line, which I think will be a major factor for them. Yeah.
Right. And I mean, if any kid can ease the transition from, a Wyatt Harsh level quarterback, to kind of a new era, it's got to be Tyler Flanagan.
Yeah,
he
knows the offense too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's played every position on offense. So,
Yeah, and just pretty much anything he does. Heck, he picked up the javelin last year and threw our area's top mark in the javelin. Never thrown the javelin before.
There you go.
That's just what Tyler Flanagan does. Castle Rock's got another team with a new coach. They're interesting. I've heard pretty good reviews about Aaron Gehring coming back into Castle Rock. They seem to be mixing up the offense a little bit. I think kids sometimes just like change. They like to see something different, especially when things haven't been going the way. And Castle Rock, you got to remember, started 0-6 last season, won their final 3 games, got in the playoffs. You got to like that momentum.
Yeah, I mean, and for them, it's the league. They're really not going to be facing too much competition in that league. So I think what happens there is
outside of the center.
Outside of the center, but they're, to me, they're a lock for a playoff spot. Let me say that. And so the question is what happens once that first playoff game happens, and because look, it's like playing. What we'll use a Madden reference. If you're playing, you can play Madden on All Pro, but then you go play online. For anybody that's ever done that, or playing on rookie and playing against the computer on All Pro, it's a very different thing. And so, that's a situation that Castle Rock, I believe, will be in 2 months.
Yeah, Jason, you're lucky the Gorge is so far away, because I think Whitesham and Stevenson are better than you give them credit for.
Okay.
But
Maybe
I think they're tough teams to play. Are they like top 5 teams in the state now? But I think they are tough teams. I think Castle Rock, though, does make the playoffs like they have the past couple seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's an interesting league this year. I think you have 3 teams battling for the final 2 playoff spots, and I think it'll be quite interesting, especially to see what Aaron Gehring does in his return to his alma mater. We'll go. I'll touch briefly on Iwako because I was out there. They got a new coach, Sean Cease. Seems very disciplined guy. Kids seem to like him. I think it's tough anytime you replace a guy like Kevin McNulty and kind of the presence he brings to a program and the stability. But I think they'll do all right. That's a league that I think is going to be interesting in how it plays out. 3 teams tied for second place last year. I think PWV is still at the top of it. I think Iwako can finish anywhere from 2nd to 5th in that thing. So there's not much to speak of there. They got a returning quarterback. They got Alex and Ethan Bersonius. They got Alex Kino back. They'll do some different things this year as far as offense and defense goes. But I think that's kind of a wait and see thing with that walkout. River 2B.
Hold on. What about Nacelle? Since you're
We'll jump out to Nacelle on the coast too. They're in a new league, so they're in the Northwest 1B League. They kind of petitioned out of their league, the Coastal 1B League, and they developed this other 1B League with Darrington, Lummi, and Neah Bay. What it means is a lot of travel. Like the closest game they play is in Tacoma. So, and that's a non-league game. The closest league game they have is Neah Bay, and that's still 212 miles. So it's a lot of travel. I think that somewhat helps the high school team in a lot of ways of team bonding and all of that. They have a lot of returners. They have a third-year starting quarterback in Cole Dorman. They have a lot of playmakers in Jacob Eaton, Antonio Nolan. What they're looking for right now is a vocal leader to step up. Donnie Edwards, Jacob Skrabak. They've had those in the past. They don't have that now. I don't know. I think the travel helps them as far as finding that leader. They'll also be tested throughout the year, and they'll pretty much know where they stand come playoff time. And the quad district playoffs are seeded by RPI. So I think what I understand is 3 teams out of the 4 make it in, most likely leaving Darrington out. But 3 out of the 4 make it in, and then the quad districts are seeded by the RPI through their own thing. And then they would get reseeded by the seeding committee once they got into state playoffs. That's how I understand it works. But at least NESEL will know where they stand when they face Sunnyside Christian or ACH or whoever in state playoffs. They'll know what they're up against. They'll have seen it before, and I think that helps a lot. They certainly have a lot of talent to go around. They're excited about this year, and rightfully so. River Tubby. I'm excited about that league this year.
Yeah. No, it'll be fun. I mean, you got Toledo returns a bunch of guys. Their Achilles heel was fumbling last year. You remove some fumbles. They maybe lose 1 game.
Yeah, I mean, they went to the state quarterfinals.
Yeah.
With
the
a brand new program too.
Brand new offense for the most part.
Yeah, everything.
4-string quarterback. Fumbling. I think they're
Like
best.
155 times a game.
Yeah, I think their best game fumbling was 3 fumbles. Something like that, 2 fumbles. So look, they're able to run the ball. I think like nobody's business, and kind of like, as I mentioned with R.A. Long, that can go a long way. Their defense is very good, so I'm excited to see them. Who else we got? We touched on Clam a little bit. I figured.
Yeah, go into a little bit of Calam.
Okay.
I mean, they're the defending champs. We've got to talk about Calam.
Yeah.
What did they got? They got back, I don't know, All-State quarterback, All-State Player of the Year, Alex Dyer.
They got their offensive line back.
A lot of it. Sutton Moon is going to be a stud this year. That kid, you'll just watch him play center all year long. On the defensive line, they got Parker Wood back. I think he had like 7 sacks last year. They got Quentin Cruz. They got Elijah Haynes, guy who broke the game-winning touchdown last year in the state championship game. Do they have the electricity that they'll have on offense like they did last year? Not at all. Do they have the depth that they did last year? Not at all. Their starters are still some of the best in the state. You just take their starting group, and you're still looking at one of the top 5-6 teams in the state.
They're going to need, the big question with them is who's going to step up and be that vocal leader and keep everybody focused.
Right.
And so, I have a feeling we probably both think of the same people that'll be doing that. Moon is one.
Yeah.
Abe Baugh is another.
Yeah.
They have a few guys who I think can really stand in and fill the role that Corbin Burns played.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting